Thursday morning, quick discussion. National Hurricane Centre, lots happening in the Atlantic with systems. Although it looks like there's a lot happening out there, as the current situation is many of these systems are currently on a weakening trend, though, has to be said. Isaac's weakening, Helene is weakening, Florence is weakening. Joyce is a subtropical storm which isn't really supposed to be around for very long anyway. And this area in the Gulf of Mexico has got a 70% chance of developing into something. But we'll spread some heavy rainfall across parts of Texas and Louisiana late this week. So, Tropical Storm Isaac still heading west. Tropical storm warning out for some of the Leeward Islands. It may fade out completely or something, remnant low sort of thing, and then it gets across to this area over here, and maybe more favourable environment maybe regenerates later on. Helene, still a hurricane right now. 80 mile an hour hurricane. Now I'm starting to get interested in Helene. Tropical storm wind speed probabilities you see here, and this mess over here is coming from subtropical storm Joyce. So the two systems are going to be pretty close together, as Helene is going to accelerate northeast up here, and then what's eventually going to become Tropical Storm Joyce will also accelerate to the northeast, closely behind Helene. So Helene comes up and accelerates up this way, and then you can see parts of the UK getting into the green shaded areas there for Tropical Storm Force wind speed probability. So the remnants of Helene definitely going to be influencing UK weather next week. Whether the actual remnants themselves actually come towards the UK or not. So when you look at the discussion on Helene, and yeah. Kind of make that bigger or something. They talk about southwesterly shear increasing significantly in 24 hours, but still warm sea surface temperatures. And then beyond the 48-hour period, Helene is expected to traverse cooler waters, so additional weakening forecast at a faster rate. And then it says towards the end of the period, the global models as well as the Florida state cyclone phase evolution analysis and forecast products show Helene transitioning to a post-tropical, extratropical cyclone as it moves toward Ireland and the UK. Also a close pass near the Azores in about 72 hours. It says interests in those islands, the Azores, should closely monitor the progress of Helene over the next several days. So keep that in mind, the Azores. Right. Possibly to be impacted by Helene. So when I click on Joyce, look what Joyce is expected to do. Initially a slow drift to the southwest, and then a sharp turn and acceleration off to the northeast. And this is the Azores Islands. But when you read the discussion, Joyce still has subtropical characteristics at the moment, and some gradual strengthening is possible during the next day or two, while Joyce continues to acquire tropical characteristics. By 72 hours, the global and statistical models depict Joyce weakening due to a drastic increase in shear and a decrease in humidity, absorbed into a larger mid-latitude trough around 96 hours. But the HWRF and HMOL models show a very different solution, where Joyce strengthens to hurricane strength despite the marginal environment. Well, stranger things have happened before. This scenario seems less likely at this time. Now it says here, so Hurricane Helene approaches from the southeast. Once Helene passes to the east, Joyce will likely quickly turn northeastward and accelerate ahead of the mid-latitude trough before dissipating southwest of the... So they're calling it for to dissipate before it reaches the Azores. But if something different happens and it doesn't dissipate, then something pretty unprecedented could happen here. No, we're not talking about major hurricanes or anything like that. The Azores might get impacted by Helene, and then very shortly followed by, one after the other, Joyce as well. Two systems in quick succession could possibly impact the Azores. And then we come to Florence. The latest map here has it coming up. Of course, it's just a H now, not an M, because Florence is now a Category 2 hurricane. The winds are down to 110 miles an hour. Movement is northwest at 17 miles an hour. And it's grown to, the wind field is large in size. The tropical storm force wind field, the orange ball here, and they extend almost 200 miles from the centre of Florence. So it's all moving in this sort of direction here, which explains why a lot of the Outer Banks is still under a hurricane warning, even though they are outside of the cone of uncertainty, so the core doesn't go up here. But the effects stretch out a long way from the centre, so they're still going to get the surge, and everything is going to be bad on the Outer Banks. They won't get the core of it, but the effects are going to be bad nonetheless. Because what I think is a very important point, that when we're talking about when a hurricane has grown large in size, but maybe the inner core and what have you, it's an upper level low has induced some southerly shear over the system, so it's not been able to get its act together properly. Shear is affecting the system, but it's grown to a large size, so the inner core may have been weakening because of the large size of the wind field. The hazardous effects now stretch far away from the centre of the storm, so another reason why people shouldn't just focus on exactly where the centre is going to be making landfall. Having said that, on the tracking map they've got it coming up, slows down, and then it kind of goes west. So it's on the coast here, 8 PM Saturday as a hurricane. Oh, I'm a bit confused here. Have they got this wrong? No, I'm looking at it wrong. 8 PM Saturday position is in South Carolina. Right, let's start again. 8 AM Friday position is here on the coast as a hurricane. The 8 PM Friday position, so we jump forward 12 hours, and it's only just nudged a little bit inland and weakened to a tropical storm there in North Carolina. So you can see very little movement there during that 12-hour period. And then after that we jump to the 8 p.m. Saturday position. So we go forward a further 24 hours to here, somewhere in central South Carolina at that point. Still as a tropical storm, mind you. So it comes in, slows down, sort of goes a bit southwestward down this way, and then it curves up here, starts accelerating again as a depression, and then a subtropical depression way up here, up into Kentucky. So still a big problem with the surge, the coastal impacts, and then the inland flood event. Despite the fact that it's weakened. When you look at the wind speed probabilities, the tropical storm force wind speed probabilities is very high indeed, and increasing as it gets closer to the coast. So the purples and the reds and everything will go further inland as the centre gets closer to the coast. So when I look at the public advisory, central pressure 957 millibars, changes with the advisory none. So the same watches and warnings are in effect, the storm surge warning and the hurricane warnings, etc., etc. Currently moving toward the northwest near 17 miles an hour. This general motion accompanied by a gradual decrease in forward speed. So it'll be interesting to see if this happens each update. And of course there's intermediate updates now from the National Hurricane Center, because the watches and warnings have gone out. With each update from the National Hurricane Center, it'll be interesting to see what the forward speed of the storm is, see if it does start to decelerate. It's expected to continue through Thursday. A turn to the west-northwest and west at an even slower forward speed is expected Thursday night and Friday, and a slow west-southwestward motion is forecast Friday night and Saturday. So once Florence actually arrives at the coast and people start feeling the effects there, it is going to be there for some time. It's not going to be a quick in and out thing. The centre of Florence will approach the coasts of North and South Carolina on Thursday, then move near or over the coast of southern North Carolina and eastern South Carolina in the hurricane warning area on Thursday night and Friday. A slow motion over eastern South Carolina is forecast Friday night and Saturday. There's the winds, 110 miles an hour. Cat 2, little change in strength is expected before the centre reaches the coast, with weakening expected, of course, after landfall. The wind field continues to expand. Hurricane force winds 80 miles from the centre. Tropical storm force winds 195 miles. So, splitting hairs, you can more or less say 200 miles from the centre. No changes to the storm surge values, and they explain that when I get to the discussion. Nine to 13 feet Cape Fear to Cape Lookout, and so on and so forth. 6 to 9 feet in other places, 4 to 6 feet in other places. Rainfall 20 to 30 inches for coastal North Carolina, and isolated amounts of 40 inches. This rainfall would produce catastrophic flash flooding and significant river flooding. South Carolina, western and northern North Carolina 5 to 10 inches, isolated 20 inches. Elsewhere in the Appalachians, that's another worry as well, because some of this heavy rainfall is getting up into the mountains. Mid-Atlantic states 3 to 6 inches, isolated 12 inches. Hurricane conditions expected to reach the coast within the warning area late Thursday or Friday. Winds are expected to first reach tropical storm strength on Thursday, making outside preparations difficult or dangerous. Preparations to protect life and property should be happening now. A few tornadoes are possible in eastern North Carolina through Friday. Now I bring up the discussion. Significant changes in the structure of Florence and the environment near the storm since the last advisory. Microwave sat imagery shows that the convection on the southern side of the storm has been disrupted, and reports from Hurricane Hunter indicate the eye wall now wraps less than 50% of the way around the centre. Now, since this advisory's come out, I'm hearing news that it may be having an attempt at coming back there as far as the eye wall is concerned. The aircraft also reports that the hurricane again has concentric wind maxima. The convection seems to have been affected by 20 to 25 knots of southerly vertical wind shear, most of which appears to be due to strong winds. Between 200 250 MB, the central pressure risen to 957. During the next 12 to 36 hours, the hurricane is expected to turn toward the west-northwest and west with a decrease in forward speed as it moves into an area of weakening steering currents near and over the southeastern US. The new forecast track now brings the centre onshore in southern North Carolina near the 36-hour point. After landfall, the cyclone should move slowly westward to west-southwestward through the 72-hour point, and then it should turn northwestward to northward by the end of the forecast period as it moves through the Appalachian Mountains. You know what that means? Rainfall. So they're basically saying there the track nudged just a little to the north of the previous track. The dynamical models forecast the current shear to subside after 6 to 12 hours as Florence moves further from an upper level low currently near northeastern Florida. This, combined with sea surface temperatures near 29 Celsius, it's going to be moving over the Gulf Stream as well, would allow a last chance for strengthening before landfall. However, the storm structure, particularly the large outer wind maxima, would likely be slow to respond to the more favourable environment. The pre-landfall part of the intensity forecast thus calls for little change in strength, but given the uncertainties, the confidence in this is low. After landfall, Florence should gradually weaken during the 36 to 48-hour period while the centre is near the coast, and then weaken more quickly when the centre moves further inland. While Florence is weakened below major hurricane intensity, the wind field of the hurricane continues to grow in size. This evolution will produce storm surge similar to that of a more intense but smaller hurricane, and thus the storm surge values seen in the previous advisory are still valid. The threat of rainfall has also not diminished, and these impacts will cover a large area regardless of exactly where the centre of Florence moves. So there it is. I said this would be a short video. It's grown into a longer video. Finish with taking a look at an image a recent image of what Florence currently looks like. It all looks very impressive and what have you, like the entire northern and eastern side, and the outflow and everything is way out here, and wrapping around, and the eye. And the only, the fly in the ointment really is the southern side of the storm. It's weaker. It's the shear, that southerly shear is impacting the storm. from the south. And trying to get some dry air wrapped in there, which it's having to fight. So there you have it. I'll wrap this up here for now. Thanks for watching. See you next time.